Hello everyone, welcome to my August 2019 haul video. Welcome back once again everyone to another haul video. This one is probably going to be up later than all of the other ones, which were already late, but you're tired of me saying that same thing every single month. But if this is the first time that you've been watching one of these videos, essentially it is exactly what the title suggests. I go over all of these specific things I get in a certain month. This just happens to be August of 2019. And without further ado, let's get into all the things that I got last month. Starting up here, first we're going to go with the comic book related items that I picked up. But first up here, I guess we'll start with this, is House of X #1 and Powers of X #1 as well. And the reason why I'm showing these off here is because I was very much late to the game when it comes to these comic books. I've since now completely caught up all the way up to currently when I'm recording this. House of X #5 and Powers of X #5 just came out, so that is where I am at currently. I have all of these issues, and tracking these down was a bit of a chore because this is one of the hottest books out right now. I have to say, from what I've read of it, it is very, very good. So if you are someone who is familiar with the X-Men, or is just an X-Men fan and hasn't been reading for years, check this out because it is really fantastic. Also, I'm going to save the other issues for the next month's haul just because I got those in September and I got these in August. The next crop of things that I have are actually all back issues that I picked up at my local comic book store of the DC Comics Birds of Prey. First up here is number 65, and this is the Gail Simone run. I don't know if many of you remember, but a few haul videos ago I talked about how I'm trying to get all of her entire run in individual form, pretty much kind of in preparation for the movie that's coming out next year. It's kind of a lot tougher to find than I thought it would be, especially if you're limited to just what your local comic book stores have. You can kind of find a lot of them on eBay, but there you have to kind of pick and choose what you want to pay for pricing. Here is number 71. Sorry for the glare, they still have the plastic on them. And next up is number 92. And then I have 93. And I have 95. And then finally here I have number 96. And finally, next up here is the last thing that I have in comic book related items is the Superman Year 1 #2 that is being done by Frank Miller and drawn by John Romita Jr. And this is the variant cover, similar to the variant cover I have from #1. It's the Frank Miller cover versus the John Romita Jr. cover. What is interesting is that the Frank Miller covers literally have nothing to do of what the content of this book entails. This chronicles Superman in his first year as being Superman, actually. So he is not a fully grown adult, as you see here on the front. He's more of a very, very young adult. Think like 18, 19, 20, in that range. The first book itself actually covered a lot of his childhood in Smallville, which I thought was very, very interesting, but also a lot of retreads of things we kind of already know, but a little different takes here and there. Actually, the real last thing I have when it comes to comic books is this Miss Marvel Omnibus Volume 1. This is a Volume 1, and there hasn't been a Volume 2 in many, many years since this was printed. The reason why I got this is there's going to be a Miss Marvel television series, I believe, on Disney Plus in the forthcoming years. So I wanted to kind of brush up on Miss Marvel, and I hear that this is the run indeed to do so. And also because this is actually a rather cheap omnibus when it comes to the general pricing of all of the other omnibuses. And now finally we get to all of the movie related items that I picked up last month. First up here is a crop of kind of very cheap used Blu-rays that I picked up, but they are all in great condition. They're all in working condition, and some of them were so cheap that I kind of couldn't pass them up. First up here is a movie I've been trying to get in the collection for many, many years because I have all of the other movies in the franchise, and this is Jason Bourne, of course, starring Matt Damon. Next up is a Disney live-action film that wasn't the most beloved from a few years ago, and after watching it, I can kind of understand why. And this is the Brad Bird film Tomorrowland, starring George Clooney and Britt Robertson. Next up is Suffragette. This is a film that I remember when it came out several years ago, I believe 2015. It, of course, has a great cast of Helena Bonham Carter, Meryl Streep, and Carey Mulligan. And this is a film that is centered around, I believe, the women's right to vote in England. So this is, of course, a period piece. So I'm very interested to check this out. And next up is an indie film, and this is a film that I believe came out last year, and it is Leave No Trace, starring Ben Foster and directed by Deborah Granick. This is a really solid independent film that I do highly recommend to a lot of people. It was in, I believe, my top 25 from last year. This is a really good movie. Definitely check it out if you have the chance. I was lucky enough to find this Blu-ray for really cheap. Next up is a 4K UHD release of a film that I don't think really needs an intro, and that is Avengers Endgame. This is, of course, the culmination of, over 10 years of all of the films in the MCU. This is, of course, the follow-up to Infinity War, which came out last year. And yeah, this is, needs no introduction, like I said. I picked up the UHD release just to keep in line with what I've been picking up from the MCU recently, which have all been the 4K UHD releases. Next up is actually one of my favorite films of this year so far, and this is a film that I've done an individual review for here on my channel, and that is Rocketman, starring Taron Egerton. Please check out that review if you haven't already, and check out this movie if you haven't already. Even if you're someone who's not a fan of musicals, even if you're someone who's not a fan of Elton John or his music, this is a really good movie. Really fantastic. I can't recommend this enough. And next up is a film that is a rebuy. This will be the third time I own this film, and this is Apocalypse Now, the 4K UHD release. And what is interesting about this release is that Francis Ford Coppola went back and did another cut of this movie for this release. I guess it's his final cut. But what is really cool about this release is that they went back and they redid all the previous cuts in 4K, so that all of those cuts also look fantastic, as well as the new cut. So you get several cuts of the movie. In any form that you want to watch, you can watch the movie, which I really love. Unfortunately, what happens a lot of times, what happened with Blade Runner, is that they pretty much only gave the Blade Runner final cut the 4K UHD treatment, or even a 4K remaster, or redoing, or whatever, and just all of the other movies are the same old transfers that were on the disc that came out over a decade ago. This is the right way to do it, and this looks absolutely fantastic. This is probably one of my favorite films of all time. It's a fantastic all-time movie. I can't recommend this enough. I may do a Blu-ray review of this just to give you a more in-depth look, because it does come in a digipack packaging. There are a lot of special features with it, so stay tuned for that. So that has been my whole video for August 2019. If you like this video, please check out the other videos on my channel.